Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to call the meeting to order. As a reminder, please note that board meetings are being recorded for the convenience of those unable to attend this video conference. The recording and closed captioning will be posted to the BERS YouTube channel following the meeting. Alex, would you please call roll?
Peter Calandrella. Isaac Carmignani.
Present.
Thank you. Janelle Chacon. April Chapman.
Present.
Thank you. Deb Dillingham.
I see her being present.
Yeah.
I see her name.
Hi, Deb. Natalie Green Giles.
Present.
Thank you. Michael Kraft.
Present.
Thank you. Vanessa Lynn. Gary Linnon.
Present.
Thank you. John Maderick.
Present.
Thank you. Donald Nesbitt.
Present.
Thank you. Russell Buckley.
Present. For Lindsay Oates.
Thank you. Kathy Park Price. Thank you. Lori Podvesker. And Shannon Waite.
Present.
Thank you, Shannon. We have a quorum.
Right, we have a quorum. Thanks, Alex. So similar to the last meeting, when we take votes, we will call roll for each vote so that all votes can easily be tallied. So please remember when your name is called to unmute yourself and let your voice be heard. First order of business is calendar item number 1, noting the minutes of the meeting of the Board of Retirement held on May 27th, 2020. The minutes have been previously posted to the board via email and on the SharePoint site. May I have a motion to consider the minutes from the May 27th board meeting? Thank you, Natalie. Can I have a second?
Second.
Isaac, thank you. Excellent. All right. So we are, any comments or discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, we will call each trustee's name, and please indicate whether you are in favor, opposed, or abstain. Alex?
Isaac Carmignani.
In favor.
Thank you.
Approved.
April Chapman.
Favor.
Thank you. Deborah Dillingham.
Favor.
Thank you. Natalie Green Giles.
Favor.
Thank you. Michael Kraft.
In favor.
Thank you. Gary Linnon.
In favor.
Thank you. John Maderick.
In favor.
Thank you. Donald Nesbitt.
In favor.
Thank you. Russell Buckley.
I'm going to actually abstain because I was not present for that meeting.
Thank you. Kathy Park Price.
Present.
Thank you. Shannon Waite.
I approve.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. The motion passes. Next on the agenda is the Executive Director's update. Sandy, would you like to share any remarks with us?
Thank you, Russell. Yes, I would. It's important to acknowledge the impact that COVID-19 has had. Staff, friends, and family have experienced significant loss, and there has been significant impact on BERS staff. We've been working to help staff. Michelle Pyram and our Human Resources Department have sought the support of the New York City Employee Assistance Program, which has provided bereavement support on a number of occasions for us. I want to thank trustees for their support of the families of Fernando Morales and John Danielle Desmornes. They are losses which we will feel for a long time. This week, trustees voted to support the New York City Controller's letter to companies that New York City Retirement System invests in to ask them to disclose EEO-1 reports of employee diversity. We supported that. This prompted trustees to inquire about BERS' ability to investigate the employee diversity of our investment managers. Thank you, Natalie, for bringing that up. We will investigate this along with concurrent efforts pursued by the Bureau of Asset Management, and this will become a project for the investment strategy team. For those who attend those committee meetings, that will be investigated in a more in-depth way there. Quick update on the Velocity project. We are in late stages of user acceptance testing. This involves significant number of individual staff, peaking at approximately 43 individuals participating. This project is proceeding ahead of project plan and is expected to stay on plan and under budget. A detailed quarterly update is scheduled for next month's Board of Trustees meeting. Operations productivity has dipped in the last few weeks as a result of user acceptance testing. You'd have to understand that this testing has pulled some of the most experienced staff. This has caused some inventory backlog, which was expected. We do expect to manage through this over the next few months. An update on 55 Water, the network install and upgrade work at 55 Water Street is proceeding ahead with outside contractors. This is delayed. One of the significant requests we are making of trustees tonight speaks to the management of the network rebuild at 55 Water and 65 Court. The COVID-19 pandemic impact on the project delayed our ability to implement the network rebuild plan. This has caused the project to straddle fiscal years. The proposals we will discuss in the next few minutes provide a budget resolution that will allocate to a capital project budget those monies previously approved in the fiscal 2020 budget. This will allow us to complete the network build project and does not involve an increase in expected expenditure. In addition to the impact on the network build, the pandemic impact on New York City's budget and DOE has undermined BERS access to existing temporary employee contracts that BERS has used historically. We will be discussing an emergency procurement rule to allow BERS to continue access to the use of the temporary staff. These staff represent significant component of our operations and skilled staff in our law department and Velocity project. These proposed resolutions will be discussed in detail in a few minutes, but will allow us to spend already approved fiscal 2021 budget dollars. Also, later tonight, you will hear from our Director of Digital Analysis, Martin Davis, who will update you on the survey project that he and his team, Human Resources, and other BERS staff have been working on. Finally, BERS, New York City, and our extended families are working in a storm of social and medical upheaval. In times like this, it is difficult to understand the pressure on individuals and the grace and resilience of the people we rely upon. I would like to review some of the extraordinary breadth of work and successes that are the day-to-day for our BERS staff. In the whirlwind that constitutes the day-to-day operations and responsibilities of BERS staff, these are some of the projects that teams of BERS staff are working on. You hear regularly about the Velocity team led by Ryan Parsot and Alex Kazazis. This involves 29 testers and 11 sprint leads. You get regular updates on the rebuild team led by Steven Sibili and Jason Shen. Fiscal reporting systems upgrade teams is active, and this is led by Chitra Subramaniam. The return to office team, recently created, will be led by Josias Rodriguez and Justin Mui. Justin is our new facilities manager who joined us just days before we went to remote work. Member and staff survey teams led by Martin Davis, whose team is also managing the improved data analysis supporting the New York City Office of the Actuary. The investment strategy systems team led by Antonio Rodriguez and Evelise Vargas, which includes the RFP projects for Chancellor's Fund and the TDA Fund. The communications team led by Sally Rivera and Allison Taylor Thevin, working to meet stepped up communication demand, the challenges of a remote call center operation, and a phone systems upgrade. Ongoing audits managed with outside agencies, including the New York State Department of Financial Services Life Bureau, the New York City Controller's audit of death benefits, Grant Thornton's audit of the Bureau of Asset Management, and a looming fiscal 2020 audit is being led by Zifili Izikezi and Chitra Subramaniam. This is a partial list and says nothing about the BERS sprint towards continued and improvement of our remote work capabilities. BERS is operating remarkably well in this environment and pursuing a breadth of project that is extraordinarily impressive. This organization has grown and improved as staff has risen to challenges, adapted, and overcome those challenges. Thank you, and I would be happy to respond to any questions you have.
Any questions from members of the board?
Hi, Russell.
Sandy?
This is Shannon. I don't have a question. I just want to reiterate, the sentiments that we sent to you, Sandy, Daniel, and the entire BERS staff, which is simply that, have our sincerest condolences. The losses. Give me a minute. The losses that BERS has sustained in the face of COVID, amidst COVID, as a result of COVID, have, sense of ripple effect even amongst us trustees. And so, we're sorry. And whatever you all need for us or however we can support you, just definitely let us know.
Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah, Sandy, this is Isaac. I just want to echo that. We're in a really stressful time, and you see the best of people come out, and I think that's what we're seeing with BERS staff. I was very broken up knowing what happened with JD. In fact, I passed by the memorial yesterday, paid my last respects, being that I was out in the area anyway. But it just really saddened me, and I just had to express that. But it's so heartening to hear all of the good things that you're describing that are happening and will continue to happen for the fund.
Thank you, Isaac.
Yeah, and it's Natalie. I just obviously want to echo all of that and reiterate our support for business continuity and resources and whatever you all need at this point. Or, you have a huge hole. You have big shoes to fill, we know. So whatever you need from us.
Thank you, Natalie.
This is Deb, and I just want to also say that, under your leadership, I think this team is really moving forward, but as important is the compassion that you have within your team. And you are a family, and I'm glad that there's someone at the helm to guide the family. And we've all been really moved on how you've dealt with this situation over the last few months.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you, Sandy. I'm going to move on to calendar items 2 through 17 on this afternoon's agenda, the ordinary business of BERS. Can I just ask that when firsting or seconding a motion, if folks could state their name for the record? I think that will be helpful. Is there a motion to consider calendar items 2 through 17?
This is Shannon.
Can I have a second?
This is John. I second the motion.
Thank you, John. Alex, can you tell us about the ordinary business of BERS?
Of course, these are all the retirements, death benefits, and refunds that have been processed since the last meeting of this board.
Thank you, Alex. We will now vote on these items. We will call each trustee's name. Please indicate whether you are in favor, oppose, or abstain. Alex?
Isaac Carmignani.
In favor.
Thank you. April Chapman.
In favor.
Thank you. Deborah Dillingham.
In favor.
Thank you. Natalie Green Giles. Thank you. Michael Kraft.
In favor.
Thank you. Gary Lennon.
In favor.
Thank you. John Maderick.
In favor.
Thank you. Donald Nesbitt. Russell Buckley.
In favor.
Thank you. Kathy Park Price. Thank you. Shannon Waite.
In favor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. The motion carries. The next item on our agenda is calendar item 18, authorization for the rebalancing of funds for the Board of Education retirement system. Can I have a motion to consider?
Michael gives a motion.
Thank you, Michael. Can I have a second?
And
Deb, thank you. Sherry, can you please tell us about this resolution?
Yes, so this was a resolution from last month that was tabled, and this has to do with rebalancing the assets and the liabilities of the TDA. And this can be, the liabilities and the assets can be a little bit off each year because of the timing of when the annuitization takes place. When the account balances are annuitized, it might be grabbing the quarter end, the last quarter end values as opposed to the daily values. So that causes a difference in the assets and liabilities for the actives. On the retiree side, when you have your lump sum and you retire when you annuitize at retirement, those factors, those annuitization factors that are used are prescribed by law. And so the mortality tables and the interest rates are different than the valuation tables. So the ones that are set by law are set in place, and then the ones for the valuation are updated frequently every 3 to 5 years or so to make sure that it aligns with the demographics of the plan. So because of those two different sets of assumptions that are being used, the retirees' liabilities might be a little bit off from the assets. So this rebalancing occurs so that the assets in the TDA fund are equated to the liabilities, and the money is being moved from the QPP into the TDA, or overfunded to the TDA back to the QPP.
Thank you, Sherry. Chitra, do you have anything to add to that? Chitra on?
Yes. Hi. Good afternoon, everybody. Yes. This transfer is subject to the rules, BERS rules and regulations, Section 9B and Section 45, and this will enable the rebalancing of the assets and the liabilities.
Thank you, Chitra. Are there any questions from the board for Chitra or for Sherry on calendar item 18?
No, I don't have any questions.
Thanks, Shannon. Hearing none, I will move to now vote on this item. Alex, would you please call roll?
Isaac Carmignani.
In favor.
Thank you. April Chapman.
In favor.
Thank you. Deborah Dillingham.
In favor.
Thank you. Natalie Green Giles.
favor.
Thank you. Michael Kraft.
In favor.
Thank you. Gary Lennon.
In favor.
In favor.
Thank you. Donald Nesbitt. Russell Buckley.
In favor.
Thank you. Kathy Park Price. Thank you. Shannon Waite.
In favor.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Alex. The motion passes. The next item on the agenda is calendar item 19, authorization for the adoption of a capital budget for the Board of Education retirement system. Can I have a motion to consider?
Michael motion.
Thank you, Michael. Can I have a second? Thank you, Shannon. Chitra, can you please tell us about this resolution?
Hi. The capital budget resolution that is presented today is for the networking project for 55 Water and 65 Court Street. These items were part of fiscal year 2020 budget, and due to the COVID-19 pandemic scenario, and there were considerable delays in the networking project, and we propose to move it as a capital budget for fiscal year 2021.
Thank you, Chitra. Are there any questions from the board regarding this resolution?
Russell, this is Isaac. I just want to make sure I understand correctly. I understand the IT part of it. We're not allocating new money, but because we're straddling fiscal years, we need to have a separate budget where we take money from both years and drop it in there for the networking projects. Do I have this right?
Yes, that's correct. We are not requesting for new funds. These funds were budgeted in fiscal year 2020 administrative budget, but we were not able to utilize the funds, and we propose to utilize this through capital project.
Thank you, Chitra. Okay, got it. Great.
Thank you, Isaac. Any other questions from the board?
Yes, so this is Natalie. So I know you had to take a 3% reduction in your operating costs. Have you also had to revise your fiscal 21 capital budget?
This budget is separate from the operating budget. The items included in the capital budget were part of fiscal year 2020 budget. So this is not a new request for funds. This is the reallocation of the funds from operating to capital budget.
I understand that. I guess my question is there a capital budget for fiscal 2021?
Hi, Natalie, it's Daniel here. The capital budget, there was no reduction. Right now, the capital budget is for velocity, and that spans multiple years. We have not reduced that.
Okay, so there was no mandated reduction in the capital budget?
No.
Well, Daniel, can you provide some clarity? So there wasn't a mandate on the capital budget. We were asked to give a 3% reduction on our budget. So was it that you were able to find the money elsewhere versus the line item of the capital budget? So we're clear on where the money was coming from.
Well, the capital budget was approved 2 years ago for the total amount of the velocity cost. There wasn't an ask to reduce that. That's a fixed cost. You can't reduce that. But remember, we're saving about $1 million expenses on the capital budget because of GKZ no longer being on the project.
No, I get that it's a fixed cost, but if we're in the reality is, I guess, it's money that's allocated, but we can move it if we're finding that we need to go and save money and we need to delay the project. I just want to make sure that for this year, per Natalie's question, that the 3% reduction, has no, indication on this respective capital budget. I think it makes sense to move it if we haven't spent it, cool, but we think we're going to have large implications later on.
I do not think so, Gary.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And just a quick question, maybe for clarification. The amount that is being transferred into this capital budget for the purpose of 55 Water, this is from the fiscal 20, and this is unspent dollars from the fiscal 2020 operating budget?
Correct.
That's correct.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from the board regarding this resolution? Hearing none, I will move to vote on this item. Alex, if you could call roll.
Certainly, and I'd like to note the arrival of Vanessa Leon. Welcome. So Isaac Carmignani,
In favor.
thank you. April Chapman,
In favor.
thank you. Deborah Dillingham,
In favor?
thank you. Natalie Green Giles,
Favor.
thank you. Michael Kraft,
In favor.
thank you. Vanessa Leon,
In favor.
thank you. Gary Lennon,
In favor.
thank you. John Maderick,
In favor.
thank you. Donald Nesbitt, Don, I can't hear you. I don't know whether your audio is muted. Russell Buckley,
In favor.
Kathy Park Price,
Favor.
Shannon Waite.
In favor.
Thank you all.
Thank you. The motion passes. The next item on our agenda is calendar item 20, authorization to amend an agreement with BCA Research Incorporated to provide information services to the Board of Education Retirement System. Can I have a motion to consider?
Deb?
Thank you, Deb. Can I have a second?
Second from John.
Thanks, John. Antonio, could you please tell us about this resolution?
Absolutely. BCA Research is an investment research firm. They provide asset allocation, forecasting, and risk analysis. Our subscription currently provides access to weekly strategy calls, U.S. investment strategy reports, global asset allocation research. This requested subscription renewal is for 1 year at a cost of $18,875.
Thanks, Antonio. Are there any questions from the board on this item? Antonio, I have one. I'm just curious to hear about how this fits in with the services that we currently receive from Siegel and others.
So I would say that, well, and Mike, I would, if we want to chime in here, this is certainly kind of an add-on. This is more of a, I would say, similar to a more of a research magazine or a asset or a kind of a service, investment research, pure investment research service, like a enhanced Wall Street Journal, I guess is a better way to put it. And in addition, with Siegel, we definitely still talk to them, and they play a huge portion in developing our capital market expectations and asset allocation. This is a journal viewpoint of a firm that only does this, and I would argue that BCA Research certainly is probably, I would say, the leading firm in this regard. So.
Thank you, Antonio. Any other questions from the board on this item?
Yeah, this is Shannon. I'm sorry. I'm trying to go back and forth as I follow along on the docket. Which item is this?
This is item 20, BCA Research. So
Calendar 20, Agenda 4.
Thank you. Agenda 6, yeah, I mean, there's a couple different agendas. Agenda 6, if you're looking at Sharon's memorandum, it's number 4 on that list.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay.
I'll open it once more for any questions. Hearing none, I'm going to move for us to vote on this item. Alex, could you please call roll?
Isaac Carmignani,
In favor.
thank you. April Chapman,
In favor.
thank you. Deborah Dillingham,
Favor?
thank you. Natalie Green Giles,
Favor.
thank you. Michael Kraft,
In favor.
thank you. Vanessa Leong,
In favor.
thank you. Gary Lennon,
In favor.
thank you. John Maderick,
In favor.
thank you. Donald Nesbitt, I can't hear you, Donald. Okay, all right.
He keeps popping in and out of the camera.
Yeah, there might be a connection. Well, Russell Buckley,
In favor.
Kathy Park Price, thank you. Shannon Waite,
In favor.
thank you.
All right, thank you, Alex. The motion passes. The next item on our agenda is calendar item 21, adoption of a policy for emergency purchases. Can I have a motion to consider?
Michael makes a motion.
Thank you, Michael. Can I have a second?
Deb seconds. Deb second.
Thank you, Deb. Sandy, can you please tell us about this resolution?
I'm sorry, what was the resolution?
It's the policy for emergency purchases.
Yes, I'm sorry. I apologize. Yeah, I'm having some connectivity issues. So the procurement we're talking about speaks to our ability to continue our temporary staff relationships. We have not completed the procurement staffing through our hiring process. This would allow us to create an emergency procurement rule, which would facilitate a temporary retention of staff through existing contracts, which we previously had piggyback rights to, and which we are losing piggyback rights to. What would follow would be an RFP process, which would create a long-term relationship with potential temporary staff providers. These temporary staff are in our operations units, in our law departments, and on our velocity team. And it's crucial that we have access to these folks. And these are monies which we will spend, which have already been approved in the 2021 budget.
Thank you, Sandy. I just one question about this calendar item in particular. This is just to adopt a procurement policy allowing for an emergency procurement. Is that correct?
Yes, that it's isolated to an emergency procurement.
This is the adoption of the policy, Russ. Yes, that exactly.
Okay.
Russ, it's Isaac. Sandy, is this limited to the Jennifer temps that is item number 6, or is this more general?
Well, I can't speak to whether it's general or not. The intent is that it is targeting the Jennifer temps relationship and the on-call relationship. We have piggyback staff, temporary staff through Jennifer temps and on-call.
I can answer the question if you wish. It is a general policy, which, however, only this board would be able to ultimately approve. So anytime that, not just approve, but I mean, not just approve the policy, but approve the execution or the application of the policy. Anytime executive management recommends the use of this policy, it would be up to this board to approve it. So we would never be using this policy without your explicit approval in each case.
I have a question, Alex. It's Natalie. So what you just said, you said this board, is this a policy that will live on forever now as an emergency authorization policy, or are you saying literally this board in the lifetime of the board?
No, it is a policy that will live on as long as you wish it to, until you rescind or modify it. I think that as we build up our procurement unit, one of the projects, in fact, really the first project, is going to be to write our own rules. And this is a kind of first step towards that. And at such time as the rules generally are being put together, this policy will, of course, be reviewed, but it can be rescinded or modified by you at any time.
About to approve is based on the DO policy, so I assume the language is, it just mirrors what exists for the DOE.
Yeah, so substantively it is the same. However, it is a little bit different in that it references you, the Board of Trustees, as opposed to the hierarchy of the DOE.
Thank you, that's helpful.
It's Michael, just a variation on the last point that Natalie raised. Since these two firms are not going to be riding on the tail of the DOE agreement, but will be directly with us, do they understand this is an emergency arrangement and that they're not going to be expecting to request different terms and conditions while we work with them this coming year?
I haven't spoken directly with them, but our intention is to engage in an emergency procurement at this point, which will give us enough time to do a longer term procurement, that is to say bids, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the continuation of these agreements are always entirely within the organization's control. We always make sure to have unilateral termination on our end.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Gary. Do we have an expiration date or projected expiration date? I don't know if I heard it around this emergency procurement. Knowing that we're saying, hey, at any given time we can rescind it, but what are we thinking about with this respective timeline?
So this is really a question about the contracts themselves and not so much a question about the policy. That's how I'm taking it, right? If you mean the policy does not itself have an expiration. The procurements that are being proposed today, I believe that we're asking for a 1-year contract in each case. And during that year, we would be doing a full procurement with a bid, et cetera. And we would basically be replacing these contracts as soon as possible.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any further questions from the board about the 21st calendar item to adopt a policy for emergency purchases?
Yeah, I have one more. This is Shannon. Sandy and Daniel, if I'm correct, the reason why this policy this policy came about was specific to COVID, correct? And the challenges that the team has experienced related to DOE contract, which puts you in this position, and then also staff's inability because of different COVID-related issues that have come up, that you found yourself in needing a policy that would address your ability to respond in an emergency. Am I correct with that?
Yes, Shannon. This is a result of DOE and law department activities to back away from existing contract relationships with Jennifer Temps and On-Call, which is not completely clear that has happened, but we need to establish direct relationships to protect our temp staff from that risk. And the emergency procurement basically is a result of the fact that we are still in the middle of building our procurement capabilities. Just as a quick update, the postings for our director of procurement, which is not the title, but the general responsibility, is up on June 30th. It was extended twice. We will be conducting interviews in the next few weeks. So we intend to get that department staffed up as efficiently as possible, given the limitations of well, what we're dealing with.
Gary, again, do we think there are any risks that are involved in passing this emergency procurement, given the fact that we understand, like, sometimes it can look like it's favoritism and everything else? What are some of the potential risks that are involved for us in that space?
Well, risks, I would argue that these individual staff members are key components of our operations, law department, and velocity teams. They have existing relationships with us through existing contracts, a temporary contract, emergency contract, I suppose, is subject to some critique, but we don't really have a lot of options. Our inability to maintain these temporary staff participants would cause us relatively significant impacts on our operating capabilities. It would definitely impact on the law department and clearly impact on velocity, one of the key leaders of the R2 developments. One of the sprint leads is a temporary employee, former Vitech employee who actually works remotely right now from Michigan. there is always risk, Gary, that someone will be unhappy about this. In the next 6 months, I would expect we would have permanent relationships with a temporary staff agency, and it may not be Jennifer Tempson, it may not be on call, but we will have an official procurement in the next 6 to 12 months.
Sweet, thank you.
Gary, this is Shannon. You know me, right? And so I think on the flip side of what the risks are, what I just am envisioning is how many temps are we talking about, Sandy?
16.
Right. Like I'm just seeing headlines that BERS trustees vote to terminate 16 people who are temporary in the midst of COVID. So I guess for me, that's a significant risk that I am concerned about. And I think that because at the end of the day, Alex, what I heard you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, anything moving forward that you want to approve ultimately will come to us and we say yes or no.
Yes, that is how the policy is drafted. The decision-making authority is yours.
Okay. And I think that I just want to say on the record, I think that Gary's questions are very valid considering considering what we're dealing with, right? Like we've been asked to take a 3% cut. We don't know what the city's going to come back and ask us to do. So I just wanted to make sure that I was clear that anything else we would be asked before moving forward. So thank you. I'm good, Russ.
Thanks, Shannon. Any other questions from the board on calendar item 21? Hearing none, I will move for us to take a vote on calendar item 21, adoption of a policy for emergency purchases. Alex, would you please call roll?
Isaac Carmignani?
In favor.
Thank you. April Chapman?
In favor.
Deborah Dillingham?
In favor.
Natalie Green-Giles?
In favor.
Thank you. Michael Kraft?
In favor.
Thank you. Vanessa Leong?
In favor.
Thank you. Gary Lennon?
In favor.
Thank you. John Maderick?
In favor.
Thank you. Donald Nesbitt?
In favor.
Thank you. Russ Buckley?
In favor.
Thank you. Kathy Park Price? Thank you. Shannon Waite?
In favor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. The motion passes. The next item on the agenda is calendar item number 22, authorization to enter into an agreement with Jennifer Temps to provide staffing services to the Board of Education retirement system. Can I have a motion to consider?
This is John. Motion.
Thank you, John. Can I have a second?
Second, Russ. Second, Donald Nesbitt.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Don. Sandy, can you please tell us quickly about this resolution? Although we did cover it a little bit during the discussion of the last calendar item.
Yep, this is just to allow us to implement that conversation with Jennifer Temps and establish the continuity of those staff members.
Thank you, Sandy. Any questions from the board on this particular calendar item? Hearing none, I will move to have us vote on this item. Alex, please call roll.
Isaac Carmignani?
In favor.
Thank you. April Chapman?
In favor.
Thank you. Deborah Dillingham?
In favor.
Thank you. Natalie Green-Giles?
Favor.
Thank you. Michael Kraft?
In favor.
Thank you. Vanessa Leong?
In favor.
Thank you. Gary Lennon?
In favor.
Thank you. John Maderick?
In favor.
Thank you. Donald Nesbitt?
In favor.
Thank you. Russell Buckley?
In favor.
Thank you. Kathy Park Price?
Favor.
Thank you. Shannon Waite?
In favor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. The motion passes. The next item on the agenda is calendar item 23, authorization to enter into agreement with SE Group LLC doing business as on-call counsel to provide staffing services to the Board of Education retirement system. Can I have a motion to consider?
So moved. Natalie?
Thank you, Natalie. Can I have a second?
Second, Natalie.
Sorry, Isaac. Great. Thank you, Isaac. Sandy, can you please tell us quickly about this resolution?
Yes, this is to allow us to implement the special procurement rule to establish a relationship with on-call to protect the current temporary staff that we use through on-call contract.
Thank you, Sandy. Any further questions from the board on this item? Hearing none, let's vote. Alex?
Isaac Carmignani.
In favor.
Thank you. April Chapman.
In favor.
Thank you. Deborah Dillingham.
In favor.
Thank you. Natalie Green Giles. Thank you. Michael Kraft.
In favor.
Thank you. Vanessa Leung.
In favor.
Thank you. Gary Lennon.
In favor.
Thank you. John Maderick.
In favor.
Thank you. Donald Nesbitt.
In favor.
Thank you. Russell Buckley.
In favor.
Thank you. Kathy Park Price. Thank you. Shannon Waite.
In favor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Motion passes. The next agenda items are investment items that belong in executive session. Can I have a motion to enter executive session?
Michael makes a motion.
Thank you, Michael. Can I have a second?
Shannon, second.
Thank you, Shannon. We now need to vote to enter executive session. Alex, could you please call roll?
Isaac Carmignani.
In favor.
Thank you. April Chapman.
In favor.
Thank you. Deborah Dillingham.
In favor.
Thank you. Natalie Green Giles.
Favor.
Thank you. Michael Kraft.
In favor.
Thank you. Vanessa Leung.
In favor.
Thank you. Gary Lennon.
In favor.
In favor.
Thank you. Donald Nesbitt.
In favor.
Thank you. Russell Buckley.
In favor.
Thank you. Kathy Park Price. Thank you. Shannon Waite.
In favor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. The motion passes. Please turn the meeting off to the public. Now enter an executive session.
Recording. Okay.
Thank you, Ken. I'm seeing now that meeting recording has resumed. So we are back in public session. Alex, would you please report out the board's actions in executive session?
During executive session, the board voted to approve calendar item 24, authorization of the controller to commit a portion of the infrastructure portfolio. Calendar item 27, authorization of the controller to commit a portion of the private equity portfolio. The board also voted to table calendar item 25, authorization of the controller to commit a portion of the real assets portfolio. And the board voted to reject calendar item 26, authorization to the controller to commit a portion of the real assets portfolio.
Thank you, Alex. The next item on our agenda is the actuary's fiscal note report. Can I please have a motion to discuss?
Michael makes a motion.
Thank you, Michael. Can I have a second?
Gary, second.
Thank you, Gary. Sherry, would you please tell us about the fiscal note?
Sure thing. I just want to make sure everybody can see the report on the screen.
Clear.
Yep.
Okay. So I'll just go through these very quickly. There were 7 fiscal notes that were issued from my office since the last time that we met. And, you know, this was ahead of the fiscal note season, obviously, with the legislative session wrapping up, mainly with before the COVID crisis. So out of these 7, 4 of them had to do with COVID fiscal notes. And there was 2 World Trade Center fiscal notes, and there was 1 cost of living adjustment fiscal note, or COLA for short. So the 4 COVID fiscal notes are the first 4 that you'll see, 3 on this page and 1 on the next page. I'll scroll over to. There are many iterations of this COVID bill that occurred, you know, right around Memorial Weekend, and they were going back and forth and trying to negotiate the final details. So the first one that you see, fiscal note number 40 on the top of the page right here, had to do, this was the first bill that was sent to us to price for COVID, and this version of it included the death gamble, and it also included the benefit for all New York City retirement system members. And the cost for this, for the death benefit, was $20,700 in increased contributions for each case. Because we don't obviously have the data for how many people this might affect, we did it on a per person basis. And then the second iteration, fiscal number 41, this one took out the death gamble, and it also made some disqualifications, such as working from home. So it disqualified the public employees that were working from home. You had to actually be at your work site and have contracted it that way. They also added the stipulation that you needed to contract it within 45 days of when you reported to work. So this actually decreased the cost a little bit because of the death gamble that they took out. So for BERS, it would increase the contribution by $20,300 for each occurrence. And then fiscal note number 42, the next iteration, they added more qualification changes to it. This allowed out-of-state health practitioners to certify the COVID contraction. This was done because during this time, you might recall, during the peak of the COVID crisis, we were having healthcare practitioners come in from different parts of the country to help us in our time of need. So it wanted to allow for those who might have gotten their licenses pass their boards somewhere else to be qualified to do so. And also some of the public employees might live in New Jersey or in Long Island or something like that. So they wanted to make sure that folks outside of the New York City area region could have certified it too. They also said that death certificate sufficed as a documentation. And it said that you could certify the COVID virus after the death. It didn't have to be, while the person was still alive. And lastly, it allowed that COVID just be a contributing factor, not necessarily the cause of death. So because these changed the qualification, it changed the amount of people that would be eligible for this benefit, or the beneficiary would be. It didn't change the amount once the people were eligible. And so because we did this on a per person basis, it actually didn't affect the cost. So you see that cost for fiscal note number 42 is the same for 41 at $20,300 per incident. If I scroll over to the next page, the fourth fiscal note is fiscal note number 45. This was a version that was passed by the legislature, and it basically sunsetted the qualifications. So you have to have died on or before December 31st, 2020. Again, this doesn't affect the amount that each person would get, it would just affect the number of people that would get it. So again, the cost remained at $20,300 per occurrence. The next two fiscal notes were for World Trade Center related. Fiscal note number 49 was for allowing the notice of participation to be filed electronically. Currently, it's only before the passage of this bill, it would only be allowed to be done in person. And, because everybody's trying to stay away from each other and do things remotely, this bill allowed for the participation to be filed electronically. This had basically a de minimis cost to the contributions. There is, we wrote it so that could be an increase or a decrease, because when we talked to each of the 5 retirement systems, some of them said that, eventually, obviously, there's some startup cost to get this program up and running online. But once it is, supposedly there would be some savings incurred by less hands-on administrative work that would be necessary to keep it going. So that's why there's an increase or decrease. But at the end of the day, it was expected to be de minimis. Fiscal note number 51 also had to do with World Trade Center. This was for people who were federal sworn agents that participated in the rescue, recovery, and cleanup of 9/11 that weren't NYCERS or New York City Retirement System members at that time, but subsequently became NYCERS members. And this would essentially make them eligible for any presumptions relating to World Trade Center if they contracted something afterwards. This was for both the disability benefit and the death benefit. For the disability benefit, again, this was done on a per person basis because we don't have the universe, the head count of the universe of people that might fall into this bucket. So for the disability cases, it would raise the contributions $7,200 per incident. And then for the death benefit, it would increase the contributions by $17,800 per incident. And then lastly, the seventh fiscal note had to do with the cost of living adjustment for retirement benefits after obviously retirement. And this currently eligible spouses are spouses who are who are the beneficiary of the member after the retiree after they decease are eligible for a 50% COLA. So whatever the COLA that the member was getting in their retirement after they die, and if the benefit continued on to a surviving spouse, then they would get 50% of the COLA. This bill would increase the COLA from 50% to 100% so that the beneficiary would be getting the same amount as the retiree. And COLAs are very expensive just because of the compounding effect of it. So this would increase the contributions by $18.7 million. So that's the end of my fiscal note report. I'm going to stop sharing screen in case so we can see everybody and see if there's any questions. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Are there any questions from the board for Sherry?
Sorry, it's Natalie. Sherry, just a quick question on the World Trade Center fiscal notes. That new money coming from the city, like how does that relate to federal World Trade Center compensation funds? Is it completely separate?
So there's actually, you can think of it as three components. Two of the three components are covered by federal. So you can think of lost income, which is covered by the Victims' Compensation Fund. That's a pension benefit that's based off of, it's based off of lost income. And then the second component you can think of is the DROVA Act, which covers healthcare for those people that were part of 9/11. And this part, you think of the third piece as pension benefits. So there's lost income, there's healthcare, and there's pension. Pension benefits are currently not covered by the federal government. So this piece would be part of the pension benefits.
And in fact, all new money.
So this would be additional benefits that they'd be eligible for, and it would be funded through the retirement system, which obviously would be funded by the city.
Thank you.
It's Michael.
Thank you.
A question about the COVID-related items. Since obviously COVID is still new and the way to assess people's illness is still a little bit fluid, are the funds going to be given, are the pension funds going to be given guidelines on how to assess who should be supported in these particular items as far as legislation is concerned?
Michael, is that an actuarial question or is it more of a legal question?
I don't know. It may not be an actual question, but it's certainly more of an implementation question. So maybe it's something you talked about.
So the statute is the statute that actually got passed. The one that actually, I mean, there were various different versions of the bill floating around, but the one that actually got passed is relatively specific about the documentation that it requires for approval. We really can't deviate from that very much. But actually, I have a memo from the law department that I can share with you. I can circulate later. We really can't deviate from it very much. But of course, as our knowledge, as you note, our knowledge of the disease itself is continuing to evolve, our collective knowledge, right? And so, of course, there's always a possibility that there will be additional legislation that will change the framework, that will modify the framework to keep pace with our evolving understanding of the disease. But what we have right now represents what was passed a few weeks ago.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Sherry. Any further questions from the board for Sherry? All right. Thank you, Sherry. Hearing none, I will move on. What was that? Oh, sorry. Thank you, Sherry.
Say you're welcome.
Sorry about that. I will move on to our final item on the agenda, which is the member survey analysis presentation by Martin Davis, Director of Data Analytics. Can I have a motion to discuss this? Thank you, Deb. Can I have a second?
Michael.
Second.
Thank you, Michael. Martin, please go ahead.
Okay. Hopefully everybody can hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay. Let me see if I can put the actual. 1 minute. Put. Okay. Can everybody see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yep.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Marty, start
Yes.
start by hitting slideshow on the upper toolbar, and the slide will fill the screen, and you can page from there.
Okay.
All right.
Yep. Okay. All right. Good evening, esteemed Board of Trustees members and fellow BERS employees and other guests. So I just wanted to give you sort of the main points of a recent member satisfaction survey that we took by the Data Analytics Department. If you recall, we did a previous one last year, which basically was limited to those people coming into BERS. This one was more expanded. It basically encompassed all BERS members. And just as a side note, the primary authors of this member satisfaction survey and analysis were actually two temps, Eric Galage and Ryan Malhotra, who were in my department and stellar employees. Okay. And feel free to ask any questions at any time, but I'll also allow some time at the end. So this is what we're going to.
Hey, Marty, just really quick. Some of us just can't see the small print. So if you don't mind, Sandy was trying to get you to go, if you at the top where it says home, go over to slideshow mode. It will help us out tremendously.
1 minute. Okay.
Go up a little bit more to the bar where it says home, insert, drawer, design.
Okay.
Go all the way to the right where after animations, it says slideshow.
Slideshow. See here.
Go up. No, go up.
The very top line. So if you see, like it says,
yes.
Go to the right. You'll see slideshow about the fourth one from the right.
Okay, gotcha.
No, Marty, not there. It's between that bar that you are, where it says insert, drawer, design, transition, animation, slideshow.
Insert, drawer, design, transitions, okay, gotcha. I see you. Okay, gotcha. All right.
And hit
from beginning.
Yep.
From beginning.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries. Scary.
My apologies. Okay. So this is basically what I'm going to go over briefly and sort of give you sort of the main points. We're going to give you the why measure satisfaction. Obviously, satisfaction is why we're in business. I'm going to give you an overview of the research methodology, how we designed the survey, and also explain some of the design and limitations on the survey. Obviously, we didn't get the whole population. We got just a sample, but we can make some inferences about the population at large. We'll go over some, very briefly, central limit theorem and, the rationale by extending this sample to the population. We'll give you some results of the descriptive statistics, which is actually pretty interesting. It may help with the future, especially in light of the coronavirus pandemic. We'll give you other results. We did some item response theory, some call it latent trait theory. And then we'll also offer some recommendations. And finally, wrapping up everything with a sample of some member comments, both the good, the bad, and the ugly, but they weren't that bad. And then, as I said before, I'll leave a little time at the end for questions and comments, but feel free to, interrupt me anytime if you have some additional, some additional comments or questions. Okay, why measure satisfaction? Okay, primary reason obviously is it aligns and comports with why we're in business. We serve the members courteously and effectively and make sure they have financial security at the end of their tenure here at DOE. With high member satisfactions, obviously, perhaps those in power may be hesitant to institute budgetary cuts if there's marginal value in member engagement as measured by the member satisfaction survey. For BERS, obviously, there's also a cost of servicing members. Obviously, there's a direct cost of labor and fringes, but there's also opportunity cost of time, not only for the member, but also for BERS staff. If anything we can do to introduce efficiencies, we can free up those people to do other things to service our members. So that's the reason for that. Okay, so the overview of the research methodology. Okay, on the survey. Some of this stuff was also done with the prior survey that we did, which was also done by 2 college interns. What we did was we sent out emails through SurveyMonkey. And what we wanted to do is a latent variable. We wanted to see how satisfied are these members. So we broke them up into cohorts, depending on the reason that they were there. So it's sort of a tree branch methodology. What we did was we went over some of the questions with focus groups, and we also did some reliability analysis through, or consistency analysis through Cronbach's Alpha. Cronbach's Alpha basically looks at certain questions that can give you some symptoms of a latent variable. For example, in psychological research for depression, you have to do it indirectly to sort of get any conclusions about depression. So obviously this is about satisfaction. So we did some analysis on that. I'm just going to go over basically the results for each of these questions that were related to satisfaction. So, we had 94, 0.94 and 0.90, which were excellent. Got a little lower on with 0.86. And those are the respective cohorts of questions that we did Cronbach's analysis on. So that's that. And then there was also a 4th one that we did. And this was obviously related to the overall satisfaction. And those are the questions that relate to that. And that was a little lower too, 8.85. But anything over 0.7 is within an acceptable range. So that came out pretty good. So, okay. Unlike the last time, I have good news. If you recall last time, we had problems sending this survey out to those with DOE email addresses. We remediated that problem. We talked to DOE, and that was taken care of. So that was good. But we also used personal email addresses where either they didn't have a DOE email address and/or their email address wasn't DOE. For example, they worked in the SCA or some other public benefit corporation. We sent out 26,328, and we got a response rate of 16 points, almost 17%. 4,400 responded. Um, as I said before, it was a tree branch methodology, so they didn't have to answer all the questions. It was based on their initial response to certain demographic inquiries. Most questions use the Likert scale. And I believe there's some notes at the end, sort of on the bottom, where you could see what a Likert scale is and what the response rates are. So it's basically just, you know, from better to worse in how you respond to that question. Okay, just some, you know, overview on why we can make certain statements about the population at large. We thought this was a valid sample. Granted, 17% is a little on the low side for emails. Usually like 25, 30%, but we thought it was pretty good for the population that we were dealing with. The good thing about the central limit theorem, obviously, is you know, no matter what the distribution of the population, the means from a sufficiently large number of random samples will be normally distributed around the population mean, regardless of the actual population's distribution. So we didn't see any significant problems with selection or measurement bias. One of the questions you might ask is, what about non-response bias? We also did not find any problems with that. We did a t-test between those stragglers who responded towards the end and the prior responses, and we didn't find any significant deviation between them. Okay, so sort of this is the meat and potatoes, so to speak. So about 58% of the members ranked email as their #1 communication method. So obviously some of these results we communicated not only to senior management, but also to the communications unit and the other pension managers. 42% of BERS members who answered this actually were not aware of that BERS conducts outreach events, which is pretty surprising, actually. So we have to do a little better job on at least publicity and marketing our outreach events. And that's, to the best of my knowledge, that's currently being undertaken. And also that members are not as frightened as you would think with technology. They're willing to get the information through webinars and other non-traditional information portals and mediums. So that's sort of the good news. But we're trying to do more to get members more involved in these outreach events, because almost 90% have never attended an outreach event. And this is not surprising. I think all of us at BERS kind of knew this intuitively, but this just confirms our initial intuition. 62% of members who applied for a loan want to get it from BERS. They don't want to go to a bank or any other agency. And, you know, for obvious reasons, you know, one of which is you're statutorily entitled to a loan. There's no credit checks, and we will get our money back one way or another. And 30% of members within the past month contact BERS regarding loans, and that encompasses all types of loans. QPP loan, the additional member contribution loan, and TDA loans. So loans was a good chunk of the people coming in addition to retirement counseling. Okay, so relating to counselors and satisfaction, we did some item response theory. Some of you may have heard this as latent trait theory, and we did some probability analysis with that. We wanted to see what, on a score of 1 to 5, how a random person coming into BERS would rate his experience with a counselor. And it was actually pretty good, actually very good. So it would be within 3.18 to 4.87, based on a 95% confidence interval. So we could say that The councils are doing a great job. Now, granted, some of that might be due to exogenous circumstances. For example, no matter who is the counselor, they're having a great time because they're trading stress and tension for a recurring pension. So some of that might be due to that. But I'd like to think that many have a good time with the council. Okay, now this is overall. This is not only limited to counselors. This is based on everybody in the sample. So it was a little lower than the counselor satisfaction, but that's to be expected. I kind of expected that, and it was basically 3 to 4.5 almost. Again, within the same 95% confidence construct. Again, this is same methodology, item response theory or latent trait theory. Okay. So based on this, we made some recommendations. Try to communicate with email, at least as of now, 58%. And obviously it has other benefits for BERS, you know, overall transaction costs are lowered, helps the environment, saves on postage, and it's probably more efficient than calls. People don't, there's not much, at least waiting and wasted time on the phone. For those waiting in the queue, perhaps those that come in, usually that's for retirement counseling, perhaps have TV and coffee to dissipate the wait time. We also offered other suggestions, for example, similar to what Disney does, have a sort of circular, have a circular, put the chairs in a circular motion. This way people can talk and interact and they won't feel that their time is just spent waiting. Advertising and promotion, we were especially a little surprised that 42% are not aware of any outreach events and almost 90% never attended. And loans, try to institute new protocols and, you know, ironically with the corona pandemic, this may be perfect timing. For example, one of the problems we have with loans is, you know, they have to be notarized, the loan application, but maybe something could be done with that and we might be able to do it online. And obviously create webinars and other non-traditional portals for member engagement. Finally, some member comments. Just I thought I'd give you sort of a run of some of the items that some members gave us. We included both positive, negative, and hopes for the future. So I'll just read them off briefly. When I came from a retirement consult, it was very informative. Staff was helpful, took time to answer all my questions. Everyone at BERS is always very, it seems like anytime they come in, they have good experiences with BERS, at least when it comes to the actual being called and the actual meeting time, which is great. We just have to work on the queue time and the waiting time. Negative feedback, can never get a straight answer, it takes forever to get anything done. You can never get anything on the phone, service is horrible. I'm guessing that has more to do with just waiting on the phone. In other words, the wait on the phone, no, people don't like to wait. That's a fact of life. And just so you know, we did do a Q analysis earlier, which we sent to senior management and communications. And the website is confusing, not user-friendly. And obviously that's being remediated and hopefully in the future be more user-friendly. And hopes for the future, and again, this comes from the members, it'd be great if you could apply for a pension loan online. Okay, that says it right there, convenient for all. I wish I could view my benefits package and contributions more readily via website and or app. When I meet with my BERS contact, it's very helpful, but unfortunately, I normally schedule an appointment 3 months or more ahead of time. So that's sort of a sample of what some of them told us. And finally, any comments, questions, anything I can try to help with? clarifications.
Thanks, Marty. Very detailed analysis.
Okay. Okay. Just some of the.
This is April. I have a quick question. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Do we hear any questions from the board for Marty on the presentation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Natalie.
Hello?
Sorry, somebody else trying to ask? Okay, so, sorry, it's Natalie.
How are you?
So actually it's from Marty, Daniel, and Sandy, I guess. So 90% is a very troubling number, obviously. The 42% not knowing, and then the 90% an outreach event. And these 16% would presumably, since they responded to the survey, I'm feeling like, and I know the statistics may not bear this out, but it feels like they should be more clued in because they're the ones who actually took the time to answer the survey. So when I started on this, Sandy, you were making a big effort to invest in marketing. I believe there was a contract for over $200,000 to contract with a marketing firm. That's certainly not bearing out now. Can we connect those two dots?
Actually, the problem with the dots is they are not connected yet. We retained a Department of Siegel Marco for that marketing consultation. In the interim, we've created a communications department managed by Sally Rivera, and the contract negotiation with the Siegel group extended out extraordinarily long. I believe that was finalized 2 months ago, 3 months ago, Alex, was it?
The kickoff meeting was in May. 9 months to get the contract done with Siegel. Unfortunately, we had a lot of questions on data with them, so a lot of back and forth. So it took a long time to get that off the ground. So it's been going for the last about 6 weeks since it kicked off. So we should see improvement on that end with Siegel getting them engaged in the process. As Sandy said, we created a department just to focus on communications. Prior to that, BERS had never done this. It was all looped into member services. We never had staff focused on outreach. We didn't have an outreach team. To do outreach sessions, it would always have to be at 9 to 5 because our counselors were the ones doing the outreach. So we couldn't do it during the workday. If you recall, about a year ago, UFT requested us to do a borough tour for their members on outreach, and we had to shut BERS down to members for the day in order to do that. So prior to COVID, we were going to come to the board requesting additional heads to staff member communications and specifically the outreach department so we can improve these numbers. Historically, outreach has always been after work, and some of our members can't attend because of childcare issues or just their everyday lives. So going forward, we would like to have sessions, on the web and actually in schools during the workday.
Hi, this is Gary. Just to piggyback on what you were just asking. In respect to our marketing campaigns, what has been I know initially when we were looking at this at our retreat last year, what have we been doing to collectively work together with the unions in this same respect, knowing that we see that there's a gap with the information that's actually disseminated to folks, and plus the stuff that you were just speaking to, Daniel, around individuals having a number of different obstacles and why they can't gain access. Have we made any formidable plans in that respect?
So as far as the unions, I think that's the people that are most engaged. We've partnered with our unions for years on outreach events and training events. The problem is for the members that are not actively engaged with the unions, those are the ones we're missing, that we're hoping that Siegel can help us to engage with and help us with the technology aspect of it. Because, with COVID, we're going to be able to increase headcounts. So we're hoping that with technology and this advertising program will help. Now, we go live with the first without velocity in October. And as Marty mentioned, the members are asking for a loan to be done online. That will go live October of this year. That's coming in a few months, and I'm scheduled for that. Also with that, we'll have a chat feature that goes live also in October that our members will be able to reach out to us in a more easier manner. So it is getting better. Once R2 goes out, members will be able to do most transactions online. So I think that will help too. It's how they interact with BERS. Making appointments online, loans online, TDA is online, estimates online. So all that will be done by August of 2021 is R2's rollout.
If I could add, Daniel,
Sure.
one of the things we also undertook was sort of niche marketing with the communications department. For example, just to give you one example, on the PSEP files, which are basically the payroll files coming in from the city, it basically tells us whether they were a military veteran or not. So we basically take a look of all those people who have a military veteran status, and for those who have never bought back military time, we forward the emails to the communication department to sort of outreach, do some outreach to say that you do know that you're otherwise eligible to buy back military time up to a maximum of 3 years, since there's no more. It's no longer conditioned on conflicts of war. So, I mean, those are just some of the examples. And just to reiterate, it purposely excluded certain public benefit corporations for which we didn't have any business email addresses. But we're working on trying to get more email addresses to members coming in. So we add that to our repository.
Just to add further, we know this is an area we need to improve upon. It's just been problematic with the bandwidth of our staff, with balancing velocity, and with wanting to do new things. For example, Sally, who leads communications, is split between that and the velocity team. It's also a bandwidth issue to get this done. We know what we need to do, and we're on the path to do it.
Any other questions from the board?
I guess my only other question was on the 62% that said they preferred taking a loan from BERS. And this is another conversation we had about, it was part of the Velocity project actually, because I know that's a module that's going to be one of those comments that you read, Marty, was I want to be able to initiate my loan online. And that is part, right. That is something that is going to be realized through Velocity, correct?
That's my understanding.
In October, it goes live. October of this year.
I do remember having a conversation when I saw the demo about the fact that do members understand that their loans are at 7%, which is obviously, especially in this environment, a significantly higher interest rate in the capital markets, and that I know you didn't drill down with those folks, but it would have been really interesting if they were also gung-ho on taking their loans from BERS, if they understood that that comes at a, additional cost.
Hi, it's Michael. For both Marty and Daniel, great analysis, Marty especially. One of my questions, and full disclosure, in my past life, I used to be a product manager in my former telephone company for what's known as ACDs, or automatic call distribution. I know you installed one for all the calls coming in. Do you feel that you have that you're exhausting the data that system gives you for what are the potential needs of the callers? So for example, if people are calling on certain items and you notice there's a trend that there's too much in one way, that might be a clue to then reach out to them for further support.
We did do a call center. We did a Q analysis actually of the call center. So I know we did recommend sort of drilling down a little more on that when we did that. But basically, that that is being, I believe that's being implemented, but I'm not 100% positive on that because that's
Yeah,
Sally's.
I,
In other words, you're
I can
saying
answer
like,
that,
why are
Marty.
they calling? Why are they calling?
I
well,
can
no,
answer that.
because and look, as I say, I was a product manager for this, and the amount of data that you might be able to get access to can be very confusing, and and can be intimidating. So I'm really just saying that I would be very interested, whether it be in this call or follow-up conversations, to just talk about the system a little bit more, and maybe there's a way to dig out information on caller behavior that will help you in figuring out how to market better to particular people on particular items.
Yeah, so Michael, on that, when we were discussing going live, discussing velocity and how we would roll that out, we did look at the data that we were getting from the call center. And that's how we decided what would go live first during R1. So R1, we're going live with loans will be online during R1. TDA changes will be live on R1 for your contribution changes, as well as your fixed variable elections will be live in R1, as well as change of beneficiaries will be going live in R1. Those are the top three things members were calling about from that the data bore out. That's how we kind of use the data to decide, what would go out when.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
All right. Martin, you can you can take down your screen now.
Just who's the host? Aaron, I guess.
Yeah. Can you transfer the role back to me, Marty?
Yes, I can.
Thanks. Okay.
Where are you?
So it's on, Martin, it's on top. There should be
I'm
to the
looking.
far left, stop sharing. It says it's the far left of the rectangle or square in the upper bar. There you go.
I transferred it back to you.
All right.
Thanks, Sherry.
All right, thanks.
All right. That will conclude the agenda for this meeting. The next meeting of the BERS
Marty,
board.
I'm sorry, Marty. Can you right click on my name? I'm sorry, because I don't have. I'm so sorry, Russell. I don't have the option to stop the recording. Marty, can you make that attempt to transfer the role back to me as host?
I think Russell was about to end the meeting though, so I wouldn't worry about it.
Let's go through the steps of ending the meeting, and we'll sort out the tech on the back end.
All right. Sounds good. So the next meeting of the BERS Board of Trustees is scheduled for Wednesday, July 22nd. Details will follow. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Michael.
Thank you, Michael. Can I have a second?
Gary.
Thank you, Gary. I guess, we were going to go through a roll call, one last roll call vote here. So,
Isaac.
Alex, could you please?
Thank you, Russ. Isaac Carmignani.
In favor.
Thank you, April Chapman.
Favor.
Thank you, Deborah Dillingham.
Favor.
Thank you, Natalie Green Giles.
In favor and noting it's exactly 6 p.m. Thank you, Russell Buckley.
All right.
Thank you, Michael Kraft.
In favor.
Vanessa Leong.
In favor.
Thank you, Gary Linnon.
In favor.
Thank you. I'd like to note that John Maderick and Donald Nesbitt, I think, have left. So calling Russell Buckley.
In favor.
Kathy Park Price.
In favor.
And Shannon Waite.
Favor.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, everyone, for your attendance and your time today.